Hello everybody and welcome back to the series on learning Docker. We're in the middle of a section on the CLI and we learned a whole bunch of commands already. In this video we're going to go ahead and work on Docker logs and Docker inspect. So let's begin. Prior to starting this video, I went ahead and I started a container that has a very special function, super secret container. Let's take a look at what we have. If I do a Docker PS, you'll see that I have a container called log_demo_container. This container is running a command called force_restart.sh. So if you had to guess, you're probably right of what that script does. The container was created 30 seconds ago. However, its status shows that it's been up for only 2 seconds. So something could be awry there unless we created the container, stopped it, and then restarted it ourselves, but we didn't. So let's take a peek at what's going on. By monitoring through the watch command, we're going to watch the Docker PS process and update the Docker PS every 2 seconds. When I do this, you'll see that now it's showing that the container's been up for about 2 minutes. And the status is up for 4 seconds, 6 seconds, and you'll see that this container is restarting itself over and over again. Now this is going to be hard to troubleshoot if we don't know what's going on, but enter in the purpose of this video, which is Docker logs. So let's go ahead and exit out of this. We'll clear the screen and take a peek at Docker log. This will show us that the container name is log_demo. We can also use the container ID as well interchangeably. So let's issue the Docker logs command and see what happens. If I do Docker logs, log demo, and I hit enter, I'm seeing that this command seemingly happened where the container started, it looks like here, and it started a complicated container program, it failed. And learning with NetMet, why did it fail? It asks, and I'm not working, and it exits. And what this particular script does is it's running sourced from the command line. So when the exit command is issued, it just kills the container. The container is set to continuously restart, which we'll learn later on in other videos. We want to actually watch this happening. So I'm going to issue the Docker logs command again, and I'm going to add a -f, which is to follow. I can do a -- follow as well. And you'll see that it's running and it exited out. If I hit the again, I'll see that it's starting again, it's running, and it's going to fail. So now I know that this script is forcefully causing this container to restart, and I can go about troubleshooting by going into the container and working on that script, fixing it, updating whatever process, maybe a daemon will fail, maybe something is wrong with the setup of the container that will cause it to fail. A whole myriad of things could happen. So this is just the way I decided to show you how to use the Docker logs command. I'll clear the screen. The next command that I would like to show is the Docker inspect command. And this is an important command to learn about what's going on inside your container, what the contents of your container are contained. So if we do a Docker inspect, we'll get a whole manifest of what's going on in our container. So let's start by doing a Docker images. We have the 3 images that were created. I have that Docker demo container that I created originally for our logs portion. WordPress and Ubuntu. For this particular one, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start up the WordPress container in the background. So what we're going to do is we're going to do our Docker run. We're going to add a port publishing to map our ports and forward our port 8080 to port 80. And we're going to run detached so that the container runs in the background. And we're going to call our container. And that's a very simple setup here. And we're going to hit enter. Our container has started. If I go to my browser and I type into here localhost colon 8080, that should forward us to port 80 on our container. Let's just make sure it comes up so that everything is good. And we're good here. So we know our container is up and running in the background. Minimizing this, clearing and doing a Docker PS so we can see our setup. Docker inspect. And then I'm going to use the Docker container ID. I'll type in the first couple characters of it. And I hit enter. And you can see I get a JSON of all the different parts and pieces that make up this container. And it's quite complicated, and I think it's a little bit out of scope of going over all these different pieces. But just as an example, you can see that we have, just picking anything out of here, we have a restart policy that we're not going to try and restart. Coming down at the way end, you can see that you can see our gateway and our IP address of our container. Now that said, something that's useful is if we do a Docker inspect and we just want to know what our IP address is, we can just grep for IP address and hit enter, and it'll pop out all the different pieces that are an IP address for this container, which will give us that container IP if we needed it for any particular reason, which will come up and you will need. But I think that's enough with the Docker inspect. You can go through here when you need something dedicated to your container that you might have to pull out of this manifest. You can go ahead and do so. Over time, you can develop grep strings or awk strings or sed strings that will give you what you need after your Docker container has come up and started running. Now that we've completed the Docker inspect, let's go ahead and clean up our Docker containers. So if you do a Docker PS-A, like you see here, you may have more than this because maybe in previous videos you didn't clean up your Docker containers because sometimes I forget to add that into the video. But it's very important to not run any containers that you don't want running and clean up so that you can free up resources on your host system. So I'm going to do a Docker stop to 3D88. It's going to stop it, and I'm going to do a Docker RM to the 3D88 container. Now if I do a Docker PS-A, I get nothing. Everything is cleaned up. We're good to go. We have a clean system. So that concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I want to thank you for watching. In the next video, move on to Docker files where we can create our own files. Please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.